Someone did something on the Blazing Saddle set in 1974 that no one talks about. After one day, the character who played the Waco Kid was no longer there. After 4 years, what he did still makes people in Hollywood scared. There were 3 words that John Wayne said during the reading that changed everything. Warner Brothers hid the fact that the original title had something to do with Malcolm X, and the name of the governor has a secret meaning that only French scholars can figure out. These aren't just facts about movies that tried to hide these stories for 50 years. A crazy idea led to the start of Blazing Saddles. It was first called Tex-X, which was a clear reference to Malcolm X. Andrew Bergman, who was in his 20s at the time, wanted to make a story about a black sheriff in a western town where everyone else was white. That thought was explosive on its own. It wasn't a joke to name the sheriff after Malcolm X. It was a sentence. He was out to destroy the perfect, whitewashed idea of Hollywood cowboys. The Old West was run by a black man that turned the whole genre on its head. Even stranger was the fact that in the early 1970s, a big company gave this script great attention. Back then, movies didn't deal with race in that way, and they didn't do it through humor either. Even though the name Tex was taken out, the fire in Blazing Saddles stayed. The movie almost went in a totally different way before Mel Brooks came along. Both Alan Arkin and James Earl Jones were set to play the lead roles. He did this a long time before he became Darth Vader's voice. Jones was strong and deep, but he wasn't used to being funny. He was still a good choice. The idea failed, though. Everyone was scared by the blunt force of the script, creative clashes, and bosses who were on edge. It was too risky and brave. It was put on a shelf. The story came back to life when Mel Brooks joined it. He didn't make it less strong. He went even further. Blazing Saddles wouldn't be what it is today without that earlier loss. It wasn't going well for Mel Brooks when he took the job. They got him an Oscar, but it didn't make a lot of money. His next movie, The 12 Chairs, did not do well at all. He had no money. He wasn't even able to afford a new car, and he and Anne Bancroft were going to have a baby soon. He was ready to give up and watch TV again. He turned down the offer of Tex-X because he had faith in himself. He grabbed it because he had to. Brooks later said that this movie saved him. He was able to buy a house, eat a good dinner, and finally breathe again. What Blazing Saddles did for him changed his whole life. It was a mess writing the story. Brooks worked with other people. He got 4 more writers to work for him. These people are Andrew Bergman, Richard Pryor, Norman Steinberg, and Alan Ewer. It was like a bar fight in the writing room. People yelled, argued, and fought so that their jokes would stay alive. The sessions went on late into the night. They were fed on adrenaline and Chinese food every day. It took 412 pages to write the first draft. That's nearly 8 hours of film. It was cut down to 275 pages, still way too long, but full of crazy off-the-wall jokes. Before, the writing had a sharp edge, especially with the character that no one could remember who wrote what. The fart show by the campfire that came from this crazy time. It wasn't writing. There was war. It turned out to be something Hollywood had never seen before. Brooks set the mood right away with a sign on the wall. That sign changed everything. It said, "Please do not write a polite script." He told his group to ignore all the rules. There were no rules. His way of thinking was easy. We know they won't make it, so let's have fun. They did it. They made fun of Hollywood cliches, spoke out against racism, and joked about things that no one else would touch. Pryor wrote jokes about Jews. Black jokes were written by Jewish people. No one stayed in their lane. This mix gave the movie its brave voice. It wasn't just a jab at Westerns. It broke them up and made something new out of the pieces. The star was going to be Richard Pryor. Warner Brothers said no to Brooks's top pick for Sheriff Bart. They said Pryor could not be insured because he had drug problems and had been in jail recently. Brooks was very angry. He almost left, but Pryor, who was surprisingly cool, told him not to. Pryor didn't go away, though. He just said, "We'll find the right guy. Keep going." He joined the writing team and helped set the tone of the movie without being seen. Cleveland Little was cast as the star. Later, Brooks said that they were lucky with the cast, but you can't help but wonder what Pryor's performance would have been like, especially since he and Gene Wilder became famous as a comedy team just 2 years later. The hugest surprise of all then came. John Wayne was to play the Waco Kid for Mel Brooks. Yes, the John Wayne. There was no doubt that he was a world star. Brooks gave it to him. Wayne said he laughed so hard while reading it that night, but he turned it down. He said it looked bad on him because it was dirty, but he said he'd be the first one there to see it. Think about it. The most serious and upright cowboy of all time plays a drunk jerk in a movie that makes fun of his whole genre. It almost happened, but it didn't. After Wayne said no, Brooks became obsessed with getting Dan Dailey to play the part. Dolly wasn't from the West. He was famous for shows, but he was also a great horse rider. Brooks thought he was great. He even found him in Hawaii. Dolly also loved the story but turned it down. His eyes were getting worse. He said he was almost blind and could no longer ride properly. Brooks was crushed. He never found the right talent, but fate had other ideas. Then there was the worst casting mistake ever. Brooks hired Gig Young. Young had won an Oscar and looked tired, which was what Brooks was going for. But Young had a big problem with drinking. During the jail cell scene on the first day of shooting, he began to shake. Before green bile came out of his mouth, Brooks thought he was act. He was taken to the hospital right away. After the show, Brooks said, "If you want an alcoholic, don't cast an alcoholic." Young never came back. He later went after Warner Brothers. The movie had lost its Waco Kid once more. Gene Wilder stepped in at that point. Brooks hadn't thought about him as the Waco Kid. He believed Wilder was too new and young. He had earlier offered Wilder the part of the bad guy, but Wilder turned it down. Brooks called him crying because he was desperate. After working with Brooks on The Producers, Wilder was now free. He took a plane and went straight to Los Angeles. The outfit fit him perfectly when he put it on. He was already on set that Monday. The Waco Kid was memorable because of his quiet charm and strange sense of time. The movie was all about how well he got along with Cleon Little. That last-minute choice saved the day in the middle of all the chaos. It was terrible when Mel Brooks showed Blazing Saddles to the top brass at Warner Brothers for the first time. It was quiet in the room. No one in the company smiled. There were a lot of fart jokes, a scene where a horse was punched, and the N-word was used without question. Instead of laughter, there was pain and then anger. Leo Greenfield, who is in charge of domestic distribution for the company, told them straight out that they should dump the movie and cover the costs. Some others agreed. They didn't just hate the movie, they wanted it to end. They made Brooks take a lot of cuts. Take out the scene with the campfire, get rid of the fighting, take out the slurs. While listening, Brooks took the list, left the room, and then rolled it up into a ball and threw it away. He wasn't going to change anything. Brooks knew he only had one chance. A second showing was quickly set up, but not for the suits. It was for the workers, like the secretaries, janitors, and mail room guys. And this time, the room blew up. People couldn't stop laughing after the first joke. Some of them even fell off their chairs because they were so out of breath. In the best way, it was complete chaos. Norman Steinberg, one of the co-writers, remembers the event very well. He said that people were rolling around on the ground. Brooks told them how he really felt as he watched it all happen. "Fom, this is our movie." Executives at the studio saw something that night that they couldn't ignore. The real people who watched it loved it, and that's what kept the movie from being forgotten. The studio was still scared after that crazy reaction. They didn't want to risk a release across the whole country, so they played it safe. This movie would only be shown in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. That's it. There was no promotion, buzz, or ads. Just cold releases to see what happened. People in these places were picked because they were more likely to find the humor funny, especially Brooks's Jewish Catskills-style comedy. The studio was hoping for small crowds, just enough to keep their cool. They got movie rooms full of people laughing so hard they could not breathe. and word of mouth that spread like wildfire. The coin had come up heads, and the fire was just beginning. Some people didn't know how to feel about it. Some people really liked it. Some people thought it was rude and insulting. That didn't matter, though. People kept coming to the shows. The movie was shown in both big cities and small places by the spring of 1974. The company was expecting it to be quiet in suburban theaters, but all of a sudden they were selling out. Some people watched more than just Blazing Saddles. They talked about it, quoted it, and fought about it. There were lines all around the block. Friends and family spent the nights together. What began as a quirky comedy became a huge hit across the country. Even the bad reviews had to agree. A lot of people were screaming. Everyone thought scenes like the ones in the movie would never make it past the scanners, but they did. The money then came. The cost was only 66 million yen, but in the end, the North American gross was 119.6 million. That made it the best movie of 1974. About 63 million people went to the cinemas to see it. That was more than any later Lord of the Rings movie did. Blazing Saddles made almost $600 million after taking inflation into account. It wasn't just a win, it was a huge deal. Mel Brooks went with his gut, didn't listen to the bosses, and made the movie he really wanted to make. It worked. The movie didn't just make it. It changed the rules for what a sitcom could be. There was a lot of meaning in every little thing in Blazing Saddles. Write down the name of the governor, William J. Leitoman. The phrase refers to a real French artist named Joseph Puel, even though it sounds silly. He was born in 1857 and was famous all over the world as El Taman, which means the fart maniac. That wasn't just a stage name, it was his show. He could breathe air or even water into his rectum and let it out whenever he wanted on cue in time. There were songs, blowouts, and caricatures of people. He could even smoke a cigarette with his behind. Because Puel was so well known, nurses had to be stationed at his shows in case someone passed out from laughing too hard. Someone is said to have died laughing, and he made more money than France's most famous star. Brooks didn't just do it for fun when he named the governor after him. It was an honor to a legendary body comedian who used to run the Moulin Rouge. Brooks didn't end there. He played more than one role. He also played a Native American chief who spoke Yiddish very well. There is a scene in the movie where the chief lets a wagon full of black farmers go by without hurting them. He then tells a joke that breaks every rule of the Hollywood Western. "Don't be crazy, let him go as long as you're healthy," he says in Yiddish, and adds, "They're darker than us." That was silly, it hurt my feelings, and they did it on purpose. In the past, Jewish actors often played native parts. As Brooks turned the joke on its head, it was only clear to people who know a lot about both Jewish society and the history of Hollywood. Casting, Brooks did a lot more than just act. You'd never guess where he added his voice. The singers who are helping Lily Von Top, that's him. The strange person who yelled during the final fight, he filled the music with tiny versions of himself that were easy to miss. It was funny all the way through. There are jokes in every scene. Every sound was made to be as silly as possible. He got even more into it if something broke the rules of storytelling. The movie's use of intentional anachronisms is the best way to show that. The story takes place in the Old West, but all of a sudden the Count Basie Orchestra plays the 1930s song April in Paris. A cowboy talks about a sports show on TV that didn't exist yet. The fourth wall is broken completely in the last fight, crashing into a restaurant, then a musical, and then a Hollywood soundstage. It's not a mistake. It's clear. You should know that this is not a Western, Brooks said. The movie was funny but looked like a Western. That thing broke time, space, genre, and sense. The people who saw it loved that about it. After that, there's a moment when nothing seems possible. A dusty desert in 1008. 174 is the setting. For about 20 minutes of the movie, Count Basie and his full jazz orchestra come out of nowhere. As they play April in Paris, they look like they belong in a music hall instead of the Wild West. The strange part is here. In 1874, there was no such thing as jazz, not even close. Jazz wouldn't come along for another 20 years after ragtime. It seems strange that they would act in the middle of the desert, but there they are. The scene is shocking, funny, and doesn't belong at all. That's the point. Mel Brooks, who directed the movie, wasn't trying to be historically correct. He broke the rules and wanted to shock the crowd. This wasn't just a short piece of music. It went on for a while and stopped the Western story completely, but it didn't ruin the mood. In fact, it made it better. The scene became one of the movie's most famous moments and showed Brooks' love of silly humor and his tendency to turn movie tropes on their heads. Basie didn't just play any version of the song either. His famous 1955 plan for April in Paris came together. The brass in that version were loud, the swing was smooth, and Basie's famous piano rhythm was there. That was the first time he recorded it. In 1955, it became a signature part of his live shows. The 1956 Newport Jazz Festival is still seen as a big event in jazz history and was the site of one of the most famous performances. Brooks added another level of meaning by using that exact form. He didn't just want any old jazz song. He picked something with a lot of history. It was a salute to Basie's life and work and a funny way to mix real-life music history. Even stranger was the fact that Basie wasn't playing a part in the scene. He played himself. A real jazz great just walked into a fake Western set in the 1800s. That choice made everything seem even stranger and smarter. The comedy hit even harder because Basie was so cool and calm while the scene was so crazy. He did not look lost. It was funnier because he looked like he belonged there. One of the most famous musicians in the world doesn't often appear in such a scene without trying to steal the show, but that was the beauty. Brooks mixed fantasy and truth, and Basie was all for it. This wasn't just crazy behavior. The rules of Western movies were being broken by Brooks. Western movies from the past, especially those released before 1974, had serious guys, dusty towns, and exciting gunfights. The system wasn't always fun, but Brooks didn't care about following the rules. He wanted to break it, and the jazz scene was the best way for him to do it. Some scholars even thought it was a bold move to put a black jazz group in a Western setting that is usually associated with white music. It challenged old ideas and told people that culture doesn't happen in neat timelines. There are funny ways that it changes, crosses, and sometimes crashes into itself. Blazing Saddles has another secret that most people don't know about. Anne Braftoft, Oscar-winning actor and Mel Brooks's wife, showed up in the movie, but no one paid attention. There were only 24 artists who had won the Oscar, the Emmy, and the Tony Award at the same time. She didn't want any attention anyway. She quietly walked into the church scene as an extra. There was no close-up, credit, or big announcement. She didn't stand out. It wasn't an inside joke or a way to get attention. It was a simple, quiet nod to the project that her husband had worked hard on. The appearance became a cute little Easter egg that not even fans often find. It showed how playful and loyal Braftoft and Brooks were to each other after 41 years of marriage. Something strange did happen, though, even with all that proof. Big movie sites like IMDb wouldn't show Braftoft's part in the movie. Fans sent in photos. Historians agreed with it. Brooks even talked about it. The databases still wouldn't change the record, not a real award. Movie fans turned this small mistake into a small mystery. It wasn't fixed, even though many people tried. Some said it was because of strict rules about uncredited parts. Some people thought the cameo was not important enough. But for a lot of fans, the part that wasn't shown became part of the story. It showed that even the most popular actors can be erased from history if they want to blend in with the background. Not every story from behind the scenes of Blazing Saddles is quiet, though. Maylene Khan's tryout for the part of Lily Von Stupp began with a lot of confusion. She stopped moving when Mel Brooks asked to see her legs. She thought it was one of those interviews that women are taught to leave right away. That's the kind of test it is. She lost it. Brooks quickly explained himself because he was scared. He was interested in whether she could do a dramatic chair straddle again like Marlene Dietrich did in Dusty Rides. That was it. No covers, just look into it. Khan got it right away. She picked up a chair, lifted her skirt, and hit the pose perfectly. That was it. She got the part right away. That was it. Her beauty, guts, and funny timing sealed the deal. She was nominated for an Oscar for that one scene, which made her one of the movie's biggest stars. She didn't stop there, though. After the tryout, she spoke her line freely, no touching. She looked Brooks straight in the eye, lifted her skirt again, and said it. It wasn't planned, it came out just now and was great. People on set talked about that quick line for years. It wasn't just amusing, it made the character's whole mood. Khan wasn't just imitating someone else. She was the joke, the line, and the punchline all at the same time. Brooks later said that one moment made him sure that no one else could play Lily. She was sure of herself and knew how to play the part perfectly. Her fearlessness made her one of the most famous characters in comedy history. It was even Mel Brooks who wasn't sure how far he could go with Blazing Saddles. That's where Richard Pryor came in. Pryor wasn't just writing. He was the brave heart of the movie. Mel Brooks was hesitant at first to use the N word so many times. He was scared. Would people leave the theater? Would studios stop everything? Pryor did not move. It was important to him that if they were going to make fun of racism, they didn't sugarcoat or clean it up. Instead, they should use the real language of hate so that the audience could feel how it hurt. Pryor said straight out, "We are writing a story about racism." That's the only word that ended it, and Pryor didn't storm off when he couldn't be in the movie. He helped pick the leader. He chose Little Cleon. He said Little was as dark as coal and would scare everyone in that town. That was the point. People in the town were meant to be scared of a black sheriff. The parody hurt because it made people afraid. The whole setup was even more ridiculous because of Cleon's smooth, sure performance. That's the reason it worked. Few people would have helped Little May get the part without Pryor's help. It would not be the same without Blazing Saddles. There was more going on behind the scenes than just Pryor. An Oscar winner named Gig Young was first cast as the Waco Kid. For a scene on the first day of shooting, he had to hang upside down in a jail cell. Instead, he began throwing up incessantly. He was in hard times because of years of drinking too much, making things stopped cold. Brooks had to move quickly. Young was fired, and Gene Wilder, who flew across the country to play the part, was hired. Young didn't follow suit. He sued Warner Brothers for not keeping their end of the deal. He said it wasn't fair that he was fired. The case added more legal chaos to a show that was already very crazy, but the worst part came later. Gig Young killed his wife and then himself in 1978. His one bad scene on Blazing Saddles became an upsetting blip in the history of Hollywood. Then there was Hedy Lamarr's case, which no one saw coming. Harvey Korman played the bad guy in the movie, and his name was Hedy Lamarr. It was a clear joke on the actress's name, and she wasn't pleased. Brooks and Warner Brothers were sued for $10 million because she said they used her name without her permission. The movie even made fun of the case with the line, "This is 1874. You'll be able to sue her," but Lamarr wasn't amused. She said it wasn't allowed and was rude. Brooks liked her and didn't want a fight that went on for too long. He told his lawyers to give her everything she wanted. Even though the amount was never made public, the case showed that Blazing Saddles could upset anyone, even famous actors who were no longer working. It didn't stop the movie from making history, though. The American Film Institute put out its 100 Years, 100 Laughs list in 2000. Sixth place went to Blazing Saddles. It got better scores than Airplane, MASH, and many other great movies. Only 5 movies got better marks, and Duck Soup and Annie Hall were among them. Then, in 2006, the Library of Congress added it to the National Film Registry. There, pictures that are important to culture and history are kept forever. It joined famous movies like Rocky and Fargo, showing that it wasn't just crazy, it was important. People still talk about how the movie made fun of racism, the Western genre, and things that no one else would say. In fact, the movie started a new uproar in 2024. Before the movie, HBO Max added a 3-minute trigger notice. People who watched had to listen to a message from film expert Jaqueline Stewart that talked about the use of racial slurs and stereotypes. She said they were used to make fun of racism, not to back it. Still, the move caused a lot of anger. Some people said they didn't need to be told what to do. Some people said it helped kids understand what they were seeing. This was done to only 2 pictures on the platform, Lost in the Woods and Gone with the Wind. It's clear from that how much heat the film still holds. Mel Brooks knew this was going to happen. As he put it in an interview in 2017, political correctness is the death of comedy. He knew that Blazing Saddles couldn't be made now. Studios didn't want to work on it. The crowds would go crazy. He didn't say it was okay to make fun of people in a nasty way, but he did think that real comedy had to be brave. It had to say what couldn't be said. He didn't just warn about repression. It was about art. He made a movie that was very uncomfortable because he thought that laughing was the best way to stop hate.